These topics were left unanswered in the Animatrix and could feature in The Matrix 4. Oh, and if you're a Matrix fan and you have not watched the Animatrix yet, then do it. This 90-minute series of 10-minute animated films fills in many of the gaps that the main Matrix trilogy created. So even after answering these questions, the Animatrix still leaves some open threads for The Matrix 4. So let's dive into some topics that the Animatrix could have set up for The Matrix 4. Spoiler alert, obviously. The Second Renaissance. The Second Renaissance is the Animatrix film that basically explains the entire humans versus machines war. It explains that humans invented AI, machines were becoming more popular and easier to buy, then suddenly one day a machine defended himself from his owner and killed the owner. This sparked protests all over the world, and eventually the machines had their own little country called 01. Eventually, 01 got so popular and so successful that the humans said, nah, you can't have that, so the humans attacked 01. This led to a war, and eventually humans lost and were put into the Matrix. That's the basic story of the Second Renaissance. There are so many things I'd love to see the Matrix 4 go into that happened during the Second Renaissance timeline, but instead of just naming every unanswered question from the Second Renaissance, let's look at a wider topic that the Matrix 4 could address, and that is the vast period of time from humans losing the war to the timing of the first Matrix movie. As the architect said in The Matrix Reloaded, the first two Matrixes were failures, which means that the machines actually installed the entire infrastructure, then destroyed it twice. During that time, humans wouldn't have simply laid down and accepted it. There would have still been pockets of human resistance in the real world attempting to sabotage 01 on the surface. This topic is addressed a little bit in the Matrix comics, where we see one human who has been living on the surface and fighting Sentinels himself. So my hope is that The Matrix 4 will give us more insight into those interim years, from the human surrender to Neo waking up. Kid Story explains what happens to this guy who says, "You saved me," in The Matrix Reloaded. It basically explains how he woke himself up from the Matrix. This is actually one of my favourite Animatrix stories because it kickstarts a character that we see across many different Matrix medias. His name is Michael Karl Popper, and he's in the Animatrix in this story, he's in The Matrix Reloaded, The Matrix Revolutions, The Matrix Online, The Matrix Comics, all of these different stories about this one guy. We know that he took part in some red pill training in the I Can't comic. Plus, in The Matrix Online, he led the E Pluribus Neo group that fought for the right for humans to be awoken from the Matrix, which means that he becomes a big character in the Matrix universe. Combine that with the fact that The Matrix Online is the most recent part of the entire Matrix storyline, and it makes us ask, will he be in The Matrix 4? The program is quite a simple little story really. It all takes place within a construct, which is like one of those training centres that the Hovercrafts create. It follows Sis and Duo. Sis is doing a training thing where she encounters Duo, and Duo tries to persuade her to plug herself back into the Matrix and basically betray the humans. We've already seen how willfully choosing to reject reality is important in Cypher's storyline. Therefore, I imagine that The Matrix 4 will feature some mention of this topic. I mean, it's so important. However, the characters themselves in the program have never been mentioned in any other Matrix media, so I doubt if they themselves would feature. But, we don't know for sure. I love World Record. It has another case of someone self-substantiating, so it's about this world record-breaking runner called Dan. He's competing in the Olympic Games, and he manages to go so fast that he seemingly kind of breaks the rules of human speed within the Matrix. Of course, that means that the agents are alerted, and they go over to him, and within the real world, they electrocute his pod. World Record demonstrates something very pertinent for the Matrix universe. It shows the extent that the agents will go to stop someone from waking up to the real world. They paralyze his real world body in the pod to paralyze him in the Matrix. Now Dan shows a kind of rebellion at the end because he gets up and he mumbles to himself, "freedom" or "free" or something like that. But then he kind of falls back down again. But still, we don't know what he did straight after. What happened? The Matrix 4 could feature Dan himself in some capacity as someone that the Red Pills need to meet and awaken, just like Morpheus did to Neo. Beyond is another cool little story. I mean, the Animatrix is all cool little stories, but Beyond features this girl called Yoko who's trying to find her cat and stumbles upon a building that has all these strange, seemingly magical instances happening, like a light bulb glitching on and off even though it's disconnected from electricity, or random metal cans floating in space. At the end, we see this extermination truck led by some agents suddenly arrive at the building with all these strange people in hazmat suits pour out. They eject Yuki and all of her friends from the building. Then we see the building is destroyed. I feel that Beyond is similar to Program in this context, in that the Matrix 4 probably won't feature these specific characters, but the topic itself is so important that I feel the Matrix 4 could very well feature another location that experiences these same Matrix glitches. Think about the implications of Beyond. The agents arrive and patch the code, but don't actually wipe the children's memories. They still remember the glitches. To me, this is a sign that Beyond takes place after the truce, and might therefore be one of the most recent storylines just before the Matrix 4. So does this imply that the agents within the Matrix 4 are going to be generally less vicious? A detective story follows Detective Ash, who gets this strange message to try and find this woman called Trinity. Eventually he encounters Trinity, and she reveals that he had a tracking bug put behind his eyeball. Then agents arrive, they try to take over Ash's body, Trinity shoots him. She jumps out the window of the train, agents turn up, and Ash just basically dies on the train. So obviously Ash dying means that he probably won't feature in the Matrix 4. However, there is an item that the Matrix 4 could address, and that is the mismatched time period. This is called an anachronism, and it means when a thing is belonging to a period other than that in which it exists. For example, if you were to see a medieval painting that shows an iPad, the entire setting for a detective story is anachronistic. I mean, look at it. We have this old-timey phone, the old cars, the old streets, the old train, the fashion. I hope the Matrix 4 addresses this in some way, maybe just a throwaway line of dialogue that explains how sometimes the Matrix code can mix up items from different time periods. I love Matriculated. It shows how there's a group of humans on the surface who capture machines and then reprogram them to teach them empathy. Eventually, after capturing this machine and plugging him into their little construct, some other machines come and attack the base, and everyone is killed apart from Alexa and the machine. So the machine, now being a bit of a good guy, he plugs Alexa and himself into the construct, meets her in the construct, and she suddenly screams in horror and dies. Then the machine wakes himself up from the construct and just sits on the surface waiting for something else to happen. Again, similar to Program and Beyond, the characters themselves will almost definitely not feature in the Matrix 4, but the central topic probably will. We've seen several times how machines or programs can learn emotions, for example Smith's anger, or Ramakandra's love, or even in the Matrix Online when the fake Morpheus betrays the General. But we've rarely seen humans deliberately enticing a machine to feel empathy, other than Matriculated. Final Flight of the Osiris tells the story of how the humans learnt of the machine's plan to drill into Zion. You see Captain Thaddeus and Zhu fighting in a dojo, then they're suddenly called back into the hovercraft because they found a group of sentinels on the surface with a huge drill. They go over there, try to find out more. While this is happening, Zhu goes back into the Matrix with a message to send to Niobe. She just manages to do it before the Sentinels destroy the hovercraft. And then, of course, we see Niobe with the message in the Matrix Reloaded. The great thing about Final Flight of the Osiris is that it gives you everything you need in one small package. We even see their photos in the Matrix Reloaded when Niobe puts them on a table. So therefore, there aren't really any open threads from the Final Flight of the Osiris that need to be in the Matrix 4, which is rare for the Matrix franchise, so enjoy it, I say. Thank you for watching that, everybody. If it was a help to you and you really liked learning about the Matrix lore, then please subscribe to Jam Punch and I'll be releasing a brand new Matrix Explained video every single week. My name is George, this is Jam Punch, and I'll see you next time.